A little bit more of Brighty of the Grand Canyon by Marguerite Henry. As you can see, it's the littles are having a little snack. It's almost lunchtime, so they're here and they're listening too. We hope you're all well. Chapter 6, A Free Spirit. Brighty was in a kind of glory. Released from his fear of the mad-sucking river, he climbed flying. Each deep-drawn breath filled him with a pleasure so piercing he did a light-hearted buck over his liberty. He noticed afresh the joys of his world, the mesquite shrubs dangling their sugary pods, the sweet pungence of sage, a water ouzel diving into the spray of Bright Angel Creek. I'm free, his hoofbeats timed as he ascended. I'm free, free, free. A hawk came swooping low over his head to snatch a plump chuckwallow lizard. But just in time, the lizard spied him, scurried for the nearest crevice, slid in, and blew himself up to fit. The hawk wheeled, soaring against the reds and blues of the walls until he was lost in the distance. For days, Brighty savored his liberty. He had for company all the small creatures that scampered among the rocks and all the birds that sailed the sky. And then one twilight, as he was loafing along his trail, something in the wind brought his head up. Mule smell. Camp smell. His laziness was gone. He threw wide his jaws and let out a whistling bray. To his delight, the echoes were not alone in their answer. Mixed in with them were answering brays. He ran leaping in their direction. And suddenly, around an elbow in the trail, he came full upon the scene. 2 mules hobbled, and 2 men building a fire. One of the men, squat and red-bearded, was eating a cracker with one hand and feeding the fire with the other. For an instant, they all regarded each other, and then Brighty was snuffling noses with the mules, and the mules were dancing in their hobbles. The bearded man came slowly towards Brighty, offering what was left of the cracker. Brighty took a long whiff, and unable to resist the familiar smell, began lipping the crumbs from the man's hands. Look, Joe, the red-bearded man laughed. Tame as a dog. We can use him to pack our cameras and stuff. Sure thing, Joe answered. Our mules have been overloaded. I've known it ever since we left Jacob's Lake. The red-bearded man could scarcely contain his glee. This little gray mouse has walked wham right into a trap. He's going to work. The men laughed loud and long over their good luck. Now we won't have to unpack the mules every time the trail gets narrow, one said. He could share the load. Great Scott, but he's husky. Bet he could carry 200 pounds without batting an eyelash, said the other. Brighty had a good supper of crackers and beans, and because he was glad to spend the night in company, he let himself be hobbled close to the mules. In the morning, he was all meekness, while the men loaded a pack on his back. But when it was strapped in place, he changed his mind about carrying it. The weight was all wrong, entirely too much on one side, and the belly band pinched horribly. It was not only too tight, but much too close to his forelegs. In his way, he tried to explain all this by refusing to budge a step. He just stood, sleepy-eyed, and his feet grounded to the earth like lightning rods. But the men didn't understand. They sweat and swore at his stubbornness, not seeing it was due to their own bungling. They broke off a willow whip and slashed it across his rump. Then fierceness grew in Brighty, and the quick thought of freedom flashed through his brain. He reared into action, and before the men could grab him, ran to the babbling comfort of Bright Angel Creek. There he stood in its coolness, ears waving defiance. What if I were to roll now? They seemed to ask. Without waiting for an answer, he buckled his knees and plumped over on his side in the water. Something in the pack cracked. Yipes! The red-bearded man howled. My camera! He plunged into the creek after Brighty. You stumble bum, he yelled, jerking Brighty to his feet and whacking him with a stick. You catch up to the mules now and mind your ways. Brighty not only caught up with the mules, he passed them, and then he went flying up the gravelly trail. Never was he more sure-footed. In and out of the creek, leaping over boulders, over little cataracts, and with every leap his belly band loosened to greater comfort. He could hear the red-bearded man bellowing after him, and then a lasso came whanging through the air. With a corkscrew twist of his neck, Brighty lowered his head just in time to see the rope whirl beyond and tighten around a bulge of rock. He hadn't had so much fun in days and days. Another leap and another, and now he stood on a ledge looking down on the men. Suddenly he let out all his wind, and with a wriggling motion of his body slid the pack forward, down his neck to the rock on which he stood. Then daintily he stepped out of the ropes and kicked the pack, sending it rolling and tumbling downward until it caught in a juniper bush. Loud cries echoed up from the men and into the quivering silence that followed. Brighty sent a great raucous hee-haw